Well, for, I don't know, 30, 40 years since the end of the Cold War or longer, the Russian central bank had held a portion of their reserves in U.S. Treasury securities, dollar denominated, but U.S. Treasury securities in particular of different maturities, bills, notes, probably some bonds, mostly shorter term bills and notes. To their credit, Elvira Nabiullina, who's the head of the central bank of Russia, in my view, she's the only central banker in the world who knows what she's doing. She put 25% of Russia's reserves in physical gold, physical gold held in custody in Russia, in Moscow. So the point being, you can't freeze gold. I've always liked that about gold. It's not digital. It's not electronic. You can't freeze it. You can say what you want, but so that part is off limits. And they had some other types of investments. A big chunk of it, about $300 billion, which was about half their reserve position. Their reserves were about $600 billion. They had $150 billion in gold. Was in U.S. Treasuries. Now, the last paper Treasury security was issued like in 1979. They're all digital. They're all, I call the dollar the original cryptocurrency. But they're held in custody, mostly in Belgium, but other European banks as well, other custodians, Deutsche Bank, UBS, and some in the United States, but mostly in Europe. Now, on day one of the war, or within a matter of days, those treasuries were frozen. But let's define what frozen means. Frozen means you, Russia, you still own them, but you can't have them, you can't collect the interest, you can't sell them, you can't trade them. They're yours, but we're locking them up, and the U.S. Treasury and the Fed control the ledger, so they can enforce that. They can make sure that those securities cannot be transferred. That's freezing. Now what they're talking about, and they're talking about doing this by February 24th, which happens to be the second anniversary of the start of the war. I don't know why they have to pick anniversary dates, but that's what they're talking about. They're talking about seizing them. Seizing is different. That's when you steal them. That's when you take them and say, hey, Russia, pardon me, these are not just frozen, they're ours. We're taking them. They're not yours anymore. And selling them at the market and using the $300 billion of proceeds to finance the war in Ukraine. Not only are we taking your money, but we're using it to finance your adversary in a war. Now, a little background, Biden and the White House want $61 billion of additional money for Ukraine. That has not passed. There's a lot of opposition in the House, some opposition in the Senate. I would say if it were up to the Senate, it would pass. But the House is saying no. And what Biden did, what the White House did, they bundled $10 billion for Israel, $60 billion for Ukraine, some number, I think another $10 billion or so for maybe a little more for Taiwan, in one bill. And the idea was, even if you don't like Ukraine, you don't want to vote against Israel. So it would be a way to get everybody to vote for it. Well, the House said no. And Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, said no. And they said, first of all, we want them separated. So the House voted for Israeli aid. That already passed. It's with the Senate. But they have not voted on Ukraine. And then they said, well, if you insist on doing that, we want money for the border. And Biden said, okay, I'll take more money for the border. And by the way, we'll use it to process more illegal aliens. They said, no, you can't use it for that. We want you to shut the border. So this is at an impasse right now. They might shut down the government over this in the coming days. But the point is, there's no money for Ukraine. As of now, there is no money for Ukraine. The European Union separately has not approved any new money for Ukraine because Hungary is exercising a veto power over that because the EU requires a unanimous vote. So Ukraine's not getting any new money from anywhere right now, and they're losing the war pretty badly. So the question is, so where do you get the money? Well, maybe they can figure this out, but all of a sudden, Johnson and the White House, Mike Johnson, the White House, say, hey, we got $300 billion sitting right here in the banks. Let's just take it and spend it on Ukraine. If you do that,
Yes.
you will destroy the U.S. Treasury market. That is I described as
Does
the
he
reddest
not?
of red
Does
lines.
he? Is he not? Is he? Does he realize that?
I don't think so. Maybe he will now. I mean, I've been talking about it. Others have been talking about it. Maybe somebody will tap on the shoulder and say, hey, "Mr. Speaker, do you understand what you're doing here?" But Janet Yellen, who's sort of not that bright, kind of does what she's told. She's going along with the White House view of this. The Senate is for it, but they're all warmongers. Even the Republicans in the Senate are rhino warmongers, and of course the Democrats think it's a good idea. The House is divided, but look, Johnson just got elected Speaker. Who is he? He's a Louisiana congressman. Apparently, I haven't met him, but apparently very bright, a really well-respected constitutional scholar. I think he's done a lot of things right, so I kind of support him. But why should he be an international monetary expert? Why should he understand what we're talking about right now? He clearly doesn't. They just think it's free money. Hey, here's 300. They don't understand the implications. What country in the world would want to own a Treasury security, $1 worth, if you think the U.S. will take it if they don't like what you're doing? BRICS is not a political union. It is an economic union with a focus on trade and currency. Yeah, China and India, they fought in the Himalayas. Saudi Arabia and Iran are both members. They've had their differences, et cetera. So to say there are all these political differences among the members and it's not a perfect, marriage or whatever. Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is they're working on a currency union and a free trade area, and you can have that. India and China can fight over the Himalayas all they want, but if they reduce tariffs and have a common currency, that's a big deal. And as far as they've been talking about this a long time, they haven't made much progress. That's not true. They've made a lot of progress. They have the New Development Bank, which is basically a clone of the World Bank. They have the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, which is basically a clone of the IMF. They spent a lot of the last 10 years duplicating the Bretton Woods institutions under their own control and for their own purposes. So they've sort of cloned Bretton Woods in a way they control. They're building their own communications networks. And here's the big thing that, they had the August Leaders Summit where, Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping and Cyril Ramaphosa and the other leaders were there. Putin had to come in by video because there's a warrant out for his arrest from the International Criminal Court. But I was one of the ones writing and talking about how it would be highly significant in terms of advancing the currency. The new BRICS currency is what we're talking about. Gold linked, by the way. And then it sort of came and went, and people said, hey, Jim, nothing happened. Like, you were talking about this, and what was the big deal? Well, there was a very big deal, which was adding the new members, because there's no point. What's the benefit of a bilateral trading currency? If it's India and China, and they agree on it's easy to invent a currency. Just pick a name and print some, and there you go. So, but if India and China had a common currency, and India shipped goods to China and got paid in that currency, what can India do with the currency? All you can do is buy stuff from China. You might need some stuff from China, but you want to go shopping everywhere else in the world. Same thing with Russia and India. But so how do you make a currency union work? Well, the answer is you expand the membership so that when you receive the currency for your exports, you can spend it somewhere else. That's what the euro is. And the euro has 16 members. 19 members today. So the key to a successful currency union, you don't need a common fiscal policy. I mean, does anyone think Germany and Greece have the same fiscal policies? You don't need a genuine political union, but you do need agreement on exactly what you mentioned, which is we're going to have a common currency. We'll all be able to trade it among ourselves. The key is expanding the membership so that the currency is worth something because you can spend it in more than one place. Gotcha. Now, once you get that far and you agree on a central bank, and I said they already set up the National Development Bank in Shanghai, so they've got a bank kind of waiting to go.
Yeah.
And then, but they don't. Here's the way I put it. They don't want to destroy the dollar. They don't have to. They actually kind of want the dollar around to do their dirty work. What they really want to do is free ride on the dollar. So let me be clear about but what I mean. So a unit of BRICS currency, called one brick. I don't know what they're going to call it, but let's call it a brick. One brick will equal a weight of gold, not a dollar amount. They're not using dollars. It'll be a weight of gold, an ounce, a kilo. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's just math. A weight of gold. Now, the weight of gold will have a dollar value based on the dollar gold market, because as you know, the gold market is overwhelmingly dollar based. But which means that through a transitive law, A equals B equals C, so A equals C, the BRICS will have a dollar value, but it won't be linked to the dollar. It'll be linked to gold, and then the gold will have a dollar value, and you'll be able to, again, come up with a dollar value for a brick through a transitive law. But meanwhile, the dollar is the one that's got to go out there and hold up its end in the gold market. And so if you're the BRICS and you define your currency by weight of gold, what do you want to happen to the dollar price of gold? You want it to go up because then your currency goes
Makes
up.
sense.
Right. So in other words, the dollar's got to do the dirty work in the gold market, and the BRICS can just free ride.